From the Blues Hotel Collective, welcome to Blues Moments in Time, where every groove holds a memory and every moment echoes the truth of what came before. Today, we rewind the reel, trace the footsteps, and revisit the chapters that shaped the blues. Here is our host, Kelvin Huggins.
Welcome to Blues Moments in Time, the podcast dedicated to exploring the rich history and cultural significance of blues music. Today, we focus on January 18, tracing how the blues shows up in the lives, losses, and cultural currents tied to this day. Now let's start with the cultural landscape. On paper, January 18 doesn't always scream headline story, but if you drop a pin on that date and listen closely, you'll hear the hum of working musicians keeping the blues alive. In Los Angeles, a Sunday night jazz, blues and soul on the West Side series has landed on January 18, turning an ordinary Sunday into a small living laboratory where standards and pop tunes get bent back towards the blues. It's not a museum piece, it's cocktails, conversations and a band stretching two chords into a whole mood. Half a world away, in Australia's snowy mountains, the Thredbo Blues Festival schedules its closing day on January 18, 2016. Picture it: alpine air, a village full of venues, and 2-hour sets where the audience is close enough to see the sweat on the frets. That festival leans into intimacy, no giant jumbotrons, just players and listeners sharing a room. On that January 18, the blues isn't a date in a textbook, it's a weekend ritual, a reason for people to come back year after year. And in some years, January 18 doubles as a Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the United States. Where that happens, blues performances on that date carry an extra charge. The music that once rose from fields, juke joints and segregated neighbourhoods now sits inside a national day of reflection on civil rights and racial justice. The same 12 bars that once held private pain become a public soundtrack for remembrance and resolve. Let's turn our attention to the political climate. Blues has always been political, even when it never mentions a politician. It was born out of systems, slavery's aftermath, Jim Crow laws, economic exploration, and racial terror. So when January 18 occasionally lines up with Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the date becomes a hinge between that older world and the civil rights era that followed. On those January 18 observances, you'll often find blues and blues-rooted artists on commemorative stages, in community centres and in school programs. The music is framed not just as entertainment, but as evidence of what Black Americans endured and how they turned suffering into sound. Educators and activists use the day to connect the dots, from field hollers to classic blues, from classic blues to soul and freedom songs, from those songs to the marches and movements that reshaped US law. So even though January 18 doesn't mark a specific civil rights bill or court decision, it functions as a recurring reminder that the blues is part of a larger political story. Every time the date doubles as MLK Day, it invites us to hear the music as testimony, not just nostalgia. Of course, no discussion of blues history would be complete without exploring the music itself. In the wider music world, January 18 has seen its share of moments that sit in the blues extended family tree. On January 18, 2016, Glenn Frey, co-founder of the Eagles, passed away in New York City. The Eagles weren't billed as a blues band, but listen to the way their songs lean on guitar bends, country blues changes, and story songs about drifters and dreamers. Frey's solo hit Smuggler's Blues even puts the word right there in the title. wrapping a noir narrative around a blues rock groove. Meanwhile, club calendars and festival posters show January 18 as a working night for jazz and blues players, a Sunday residency in Los Angeles, a festival finale in Thredbo, countless bar gigs and jam sessions that never make the history books. The music of January 18 is often local and undocumented, but that's exactly how the blues has always lived. For every famous recording session, there are 1,000 nights where the only record is the memory of people who were in the room. January 18 has also marked the beginning of life for some powerful musical voices. Now, you won't find a Robert Johnson or a Bessie Smith with a January 18 birthday, but you will find artists whose work is soaked in blues feeling. David Ruffin, born January 18, 1941 in Mississippi, became one of the most defining voices of Motown as a lead singer of The Temptations. His voice, pleading, raspy, full of ache, carries the emotional vocabulary of the blues into the polished world of the 1960s soul. When he sings My Girl, there's joy, sure, but there's also that hint of vulnerability that blues singers have been riding since the earliest 78s. Then there's Al Foster, born January 18, 1943, a jazz drummer best known for his work with Miles Davis. Foster's drumming is a study in feel, shuffles that nod to the juke joint, backbeats that lean just behind the metronome, cymbal work that lets a simple vamp simmer like a slow blues. On Electric Era Miles records, you can hear the blues stretched, electrified and abstracted, but it's still there, pulsing under Foster's ride cymbal. These January 18 birthdays remind us that the blues doesn't always announce itself by name. Sometimes it arrives in a Motown hook, a jazz groove, or a drummer's choice to drag the beat just enough to make it hurt. Sadly, January 18 has also been a day of loss. On January 18, 1960, the blues world lost Gladys Bentley in Los Angeles. If you've never heard her name, imagine this: Harlem in the 1920s, a packed speakeasy called Harry's Hansberry's Clam House, and a black woman in a tuxedo and top hat sitting at the piano. She's playing hard, singing in deep growling voice, and tossing out improvised, risque lyrics, while openly flirting with women in the crowd. That was Gladys Bentley. Bentley headlined at the Ubangi Club, with a chorus lined of drag queens behind her, turning blues performance into a full-scale challenge to gender and sexual norms. At the time when being black, queer, and the gender non-conforming was dangerous, she made a career out of being all three in public. Musically, she fused barrelhouse piano, stride, and blues into a sound that was as physical as it was musical, pounding keys, belting verses, and turning familiar tunes into something raw and new. Her death on January 18 closes the chapter on one of the most daring figures of the Harlem Renaissance. But her legacy lives on, wherever blues and jazz intersects with queer performance, cabaret, and drag culture. Every time a singer bends a note while bending gender, there's a little bit of Gladys Bentley in the room. And then decades later, January 18, 2016, marks the passing of Glenn Frey. His death reminds us how far the blues travelled, from southern fields to California freeways, from 12-bar laments to stadium anthems. The date holds both a Harlem piano bench and a rock and roll arena in its hands. And that's all the time we have for today's episode of Blues Moments in Time. January 18 may not be packed with textbook milestones, but it's rich with lives, losses, and late-night sets that show how the blues keeps working, quietly, insistently, through ordinary days. Join us next time as we continue exploring the fascinating history of the blues.